If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us yet again for another installment of Wild and Weird Radio. And what in heaven's gate, we're covering UFO cults this week. It's going to be an interesting show, and it's probably not going to go the direction you think it's going to go, guys. We've got a lot of really good information. And before we get into that, though,
some of it we just made up because that's what you do when you start a UFO cult.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But before all that, so, busy news week?
Busy-ish. There's been some big news that has dropped. One of them, I think, actually, it dropped today from the debrief. Yeah. And apparently there's a National Geographic series surrounding it. And this is a topic that is near and dear to Ron and I's heart because, you know, we are both, you know, members of the Church of the Holy Serpent.
That's right.
And I have to. We're talking about UFO cults.
I know. Fits right in.
It fits. But no, Ron and I have both been keeping reptiles for ages. And to people who are in the community, this is not anything that's new to us. You know, it would not shock me either if some of these species are in captivity and we just don't know because how often did we see that realistically?
Well, we saw so many cool things that were at these shows and it was just like, where'd they come from?
Yeah.
You know, are they F1? You know, could have been. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So much of this stuff is wild caught that's brought in. That's just how the pet trade works, guys. But the key to this article is that there is a giant species of anaconda. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, anacondas are already giant. Yeah, we get that. But this is a massive species, a species that has been rumored to have existed for hundreds of years, according to, you know, the white man. But this is a species that has been well known to the indigenous culture, and that's who's been telling us that they're there for all these hundreds of years. But guess what? We've not found it. So that means it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, you know. The evidence of absence, right? It's that whole argument. That's exactly what it is.
Now that's an argument that's also used for
other things.
Other things. What would all of those.
All of those. Literally all of those. Everything paranormal, ufological.
Yeah.
It all fits in the same thing. It's just how we haven't observed it ourselves, so it can't be real.
And
yet you've got these elders.
We're talking about the discovery of a 30+ foot animal that is a new species that has been, you know, scientists and biologists said, oh no, it can't exist. We would have found it by now.
Well, it's about 27 feet long, I think is what it was. But Will Smith found this, so that makes it important, guys.
Right? So here we are. We're now acknowledging that this thing's been there after literally hundreds of years of denial.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a whole different species.
It's a different species. The genetic testing has shown, they've done the tests on it. It is a deep separation of species, even though they're still the green anaconda. It's just in north and south. They've come to find out that there is a differentiation between the two species.
Not just a morphology. It's an actual different species, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And probably started as a morph at one point.
Yeah, it probably did, and then branched off and kept going and going and going over thousands of years. And because of food supply abundance and remote habitat, this thing gets big.
Yeah. Real
It
big.
just got big. I mean, how often have we seen that in other animals? You know, we know that this is a studied effect. As farther you go north, the larger the animals get.
Mhm.
But also, we've seen these animals where they have a giant gene, so to speak, and they just get bigger. And it's a trait that will breed true if you work with it, you
Yeah.
know? And it's been around in the hobby forever. So what's to say that this isn't how that started? And then it became isolated and then more isolated to the point where it became its own subspecies.
Yeah. Nature finds a way. That's right. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think that to me, that's crazy, but also it
Pro-
proves that
It's
there's
prophetic, is
something.
what it is. It's
It,
prophetic, is what it is.
it really is. And it proves that the whole adage that everyone uses all the time, well, anything over so many inches is unlikely to be discovered anymore because we've already found it all on land. 30 feet. Let's talk about that. 30 feet's kind of big.
I mean, I don't know if Sasquatch don't hang out underwater. I haven't caught one. I don't
Right.
know. Maybe that's what they
Maybe
do.
they
Maybe
do.
they live underwater.
Maybe
Maybe
they do.
maybe that's why we see so many orbs and stuff around water and UFOs around water. Maybe they are UFOs and orbs and they're living underwater.
Could
I
be.
just started a whole new
You just
theory.
started a whole new thing.
That's going to be in my cult. So you guys, here's how it's going to work. You're going to have to buy the book to understand the guidelines.
Yeah.
See,
Oh man. So what else we got in the news?
in other news, we had a very interesting weekend there. I was on Valentine's Day, actually, and it was on the last episode. You guys who tuned in and saw record-breaking episode there. That was Mr. Stan Gordon back again. Stan shows always do fantastic.
They really do.
Right out the gate, it was like one of the highest viewed right off the of the series this year. And the thing is, he had talked about this sighting that they had, and we had heard it too. There was something seen in the skies. It was pretty much from Kentucky to West Virginia to where's it, up in Maine, right?
All the way up to Maine, yeah. Basically the entire
Yeah,
northeastern seaboard,
yeah. So
and as far interior as Kentucky.
now, we brought it up. It's like, well, there were rocket launches that night. There were rocket launches on the east and west coast, and even Dave had told us that. And he had said that it's probably more than likely it was a Starlink kind of thing. Turns out that's exactly what it may have been. Someone that Stan had been in contact with, he'd been contacting me this week and said he thought he had an answer to this, and he'd been waiting and waiting to get this out there. So today he finally released it, and it was released today, which is recording day of the 27th. So come to find out that basically this thing was a Falcon 9 deorbit burn. That's what people had seen. Now, Stan had also seen some weird stuff up there that I don't think was a Falcon 9 deorbit burn,
Right.
right?
There's been some sightings up there that were way closer to the earth, way closer to the ground.
Yeah, some weird
And
stuff. And we'll be hearing some more about that, I guess, soon too, right?
oh, you would think so, because
Yeah,
those can now you can definitely separate the other
yeah,
sightings from that at this
yeah.
point.
We can separate the high strangeness stuff,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of how it works. So in other news, it looks like we're gonna have to wait a little bit on David Grush's op-ed there, Joe.
Yeah, I saw that. What's going on? I didn't get a chance to read the article. I just saw
Well, what's
that.
going on is the powers that be don't like the fact that this guy is writing the truth and he's going to release the truth in a couple of
Surprise.
weeks. Yeah. So basically, no. And what's really crazy about it is that they said the office has not finished its review of the draft he submitted 2 months ago. So what happens, Joe, is basically you've got the powers that be who are trying to intercept this football, right? And that's
Yeah, I
kind of
mean
what.
that kind of makes sense. It's a
Yeah,
very it makes you wonder, is this a government op or just an opportunistic uh ploy?
man, it's just stinks. The whole thing stinks. It smells weird to me, and you can see where the conspiracy theorists get their ammo, right?
Oh
That's all
yeah,
I can say
100%.
about it.
It's
That's
super easy.
all. Yeah, it's easy. If there's nothing there, and Kirkpatrick has said this multiple times, He's lying. The people, or he's not lying, but the people who he's talked to are lying, and he's gullible, is basically what he said. So if that's the case, then why? Who cares? So what? I have tons of books written by liars. How about you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There are
Right?
tons of books that are written by people who wholeheartedly believe the lie that they're telling.
Yeah.
But you can tell, you can tell,
Yeah.
especially if you talk to the individual.
So what would this lie? What would these lies? How could they affect anyone if they're just lies? They can't.
Right. It doesn't, if it's lies, it wouldn't do anything other than
Exactly.
maybe fuel conspiracy theory.
So what? Have you looked at the
But
internet?
it doesn't need fuel.
Jeez.
It does itself. Like this is a self-fueling thing is how conspiracy theories roll.
No, they just put high octane in the conspiracy theorist tank. That's what they did with this.
Because if they really are trying to block this, they're just creating ammunition.
Yeah.
I mean,
I gotta say, based on what we've seen, I believe they are trying to block it. That's personally right now, based on the data I've seen, that's what I see. That's what I think.
And I would lean into that because the collective, we have too much data pointing in the direction that this is not some kind of government stuff. Yeah.
No, it's an everyday thing. And,
Yeah.
That's the whole point. And, it's a new type of normal, and they're afraid of the new type of normal. I think that's where it comes down to. Either that, or maybe he was going to release some names of some, non-government facilities that build, I don't know, aircraft.
Yeah,
maybe
it's possible. I mean, we do know that, certain things are protected, certain things are not. It just depends on if it's on the black books or not.
Right. Exactly. So that's where we stand with pretty much everything that's going on here. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear a lot more about this in the coming weeks. We predicted March.
Yeah, we did.
Somewhere in March, I think is what we said. So we're going to see if we're right. I mean, we would have been right. We would have been right if it wouldn't been for this.
We would have been. That is correct. So
within 2 weeks,
even if they block this successfully, I'm still going to count that as a win.
I would count that, as a yeah. It seems that other things are in play here, but we're going to keep watching, and we're going to see what's happening. I think in 2 weeks we will have something on the table to talk about. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a major shakeup in the UFO world here very, very shortly.
Now, before the news is over, one last thing, because this is a topic that we have to touch, okay? Because this is what we do on the show, okay?
Ghosts,
ghost possums specifically. No, it may be ghost possums, but anyway, we had a crazy thing happen last week. Unprecedented, first time it's ever happened in the way it's happened, where an entire cellular network went down.
Aliens.
Yeah, right.
Totally.
But you have all these theories that are roaming about, and I get it. We distrust the government. We distrust other governments just as much as anyone else. But we also strive to find the truth. That is what we do with all of our research. It's how we manage this show. Is we strive to find you the truth, to give you the best possible data that we can based off several things: the available data, the known possibilities, and then we will throw in some hypotheses from time to time. However, there's been a lot of people wondering why there was a change to the story with what happened to the satellite, right? Because initially, solar flare. Everybody was reporting solar flare. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, no. This was an operations issue. This was our bad, blah, blah, blah. And then everybody started saying, oh, well, there was some kind of a corrupt strand of data or corrupt coding that was put onto our phones. And now they're data mining. So this is going to be one of the biggest heists in history.
Man, I am so sick of the paranoia.
Right?
I'm just saying, I
And
don't mean to sound like that, but I am so sick of the paranoia. It's just like I get where it's coming from. I really do. I get where it's coming from
yeah,
because every day, all you see, the headlines. Maria sends me this every day. She'll send me little screenshots. There's always these great headlines, and some of the headlines are just
yeah.
absolutely unbelievable.
What's funny is that without them talking,
Fear.
Kelly does the same thing to me.
It's fear, fear, fear.
Yep.
And it's just like she knows that I'm just watching it because we laugh about it. We're just like, well, what are they doing today to make everybody
Uh-huh.
paranoid? That's the truth. The part that isn't true is the stuff that people take from that and weave it into this gigantic, they're
Intricate
yeah,
web of like masterful,
yeah,
complex design. Like Cobra Commander is
yeah,
the one out there
right. Mm.
conspiring against the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
so, all right, let's address this in a way that's very practical. We are currently in a season or cycle rather
Cycle.
of the sun's history where it is in an uptick of activity. We haven't seen an uptick of activity like this, and it's these have been charted for a long time. This has been on schedule. This has known it was coming. It's not been a secret to anybody who watches any kind of astronomy stuff that we're moving into a cycle of the sun that we had back in the 1850s, where solar flares were very prevalent, very, very large, and potentially very disastrous. Now, if one of these solar flares hits the wrong way, like, let's be real, a large solar flare can strip the atmosphere from the planet. We're all doomed.
I remember that cartoon. What was it? Um, Hanna-Barbera made it. That's what
Yeah.
happened, I believe. There's a solar flare and it stripped all the oxygen and everything started and we're
So how would you quell the imminent fear? Change the news. That's the easiest way. Come up with a different story. So I understand from one point they want to try to control the fear,
You can't.
but you can't,
You
because
can't.
what it did when you reported it as solar flares initially, everybody started looking up solar flares, and then all of a sudden it was like solar flare.
No.
Oh, solar flare! Oh my god!
They looked up the Carrington event.
Yeah, the
That's what they
Carrington
did.
event. That was the 1850.
Automatically. And you know why they looked it up? Because the media started to do what the media does best.
Yeah.
They grabbed a hold of the story and then it started to show up. And they knew what was going to happen at that point. It was just going to turn into a firestorm of that's what did this. I'm just
Yeah.
thankful. I'm thankful that they actually said in the report though, could have.
Right.
Could have. I mean, here's the thing. You know what? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer in this is. I play with this in my head all the time. It's like I know we went through that. I know we could do that. We could deal with that kind of stuff back in the day. But things have changed. Society has changed. People have changed. And you get that whole thing about, oh, if there's an asteroid coming, for example. You
Yeah.
hear that argument a lot.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, they would tell us, as long as there's 10 years to prepare. No, they wouldn't.
No, you would know,
No,
like
they would not. They
when
would
you
not
see the
tell you.
dot in the sky appear, that's when you would find out.
You would not know. No. I mean, the only way you're gonna find out, I think, what was it deep? It wasn't might have been Deep Impact. No, it was the other one.
It was the
One of the
other. It
movies.
wasn't Deep Impact. It was
It was the other one, and it got really close because, the whole lottery system, secret,
yeah.
not telling anyone. That was a dumb, movie in general. Just it was fun little adventure thing, but
Yeah.
it was dumb. It wouldn't work that way. But some of the key components of that, that's how it would work. And there would be these little rumors of, oh yeah, they're saying this is happening, And then, with the paranoid audience that's out there now, you wouldn't even know what was real and what's not. So it wouldn't really matter, right? So I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it was a solar flare. That's just me
I do
based
too.
upon what I saw, and I don't
And
think
as
it's
long as it
anything.
took to get everything back up.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to freak out about, though. This is the
No.
difference. What people don't realize, here's a little something to put your little minds to rest. In the 1970s, there was a massive solar flare that hit, and it did take out part of the
Radio.
above ground AT&T's lines back in the day.
Yeah.
They shielded those lines back in the 70s. They're fairly safe, but there's a reason we do need to look at our infrastructure, our power grids, all that. It needs to be updated.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not. We're still living in 1950s, you know.
I'm going to say, I'm going to
wiring.
throw this out there before we jump into the episode.
Yeah.
Probably the reason why it's not updated is they have to figure out how to change analog to something else, and nobody knows how to run that analog system anymore.
You're probably right, man. I don't know, but that's the truth. I mean, here's the thing: is that, you know, I know there's a long way around to get here, but basically, we think it may have been a solar flare.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it was. That's just our opinion, personal opinion. And I can give you some links, and I am going to put some down here in the bottom. You can watch the sun for yourself, go through its hissy right now, because it's really, honestly, it's fascinating. I used to watch solar activity. I had a telescope with the little green filter and all that. So I used to plot.
Don't listen to him. Ron just used to stare at the sun. That's what's wrong with him.
That's what's wrong with him. No, I used to plot sunspot activity and whatnot. And I always was in the school camp that it can affect things. And it does. And I get headaches.
That's how, I've got a tremendous headache right now. But Ron's told me a few times, like, here comes a big one. You probably need to get ready, because he knows that I get headaches from it too. And he gets headaches from it. So
a lot of our members, a lot of our listeners do.
Yeah. And, but what Ron was mentioning, that's how they plotted early sunspot activity. Like, what you were doing was the same exact thing that they were doing back in the day. Like, you were using a specific filter on a lens, and you can either look at it directly, or you can put it straight down on a piece of paper and view it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's basic astronomy stuff, but it's fun to do. Don't be afraid of the sun. That's what I would tell you, because I think that was one of the other reasons. It's probably like, oh dear God, we put this out there and they're going to be afraid of the sun now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's ultimately why I think they pulled it, because people are very scared right now.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you sit on whatever political line, people are scared.
Yep. Exactly.
And we've seen that for the last 4 years.
It's sad. It's really sad, because, you know, if you join the church,
a UFO cult, you don't have anything to worry about.
Of the holy serpent or sacred serpent or whatever it is, you know. No, I'm kidding. It's all right.
We can ensure your transport off the planet.
Just in time to avoid this massive solar flare. No, I'm kidding. Totally. Sorry about that. But for real, that's just kind of thing we wanted to touch on there, because there's a lot of rumor and speculation about that and being nefarious and all this stuff. And it's just what it is. There was no top secret plan to see, you know, oh, they did this to check out and make sure of this. What the? No, they didn't. If they want to do that, do you know how easy it would have been? Like I said, 2020, they had every bit of power right there to take over the world if they wanted to. They didn't. That's all I'm going to say about it. They didn't. All right, let's get out of the news before I destroy the newsroom.
Baby Zorp has entered the room. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, tonight's show is a very interesting show. There's been a lot of talk about some of these things recently, for obvious reasons. It's, you know, it's kind of a buzz. There's been a few documentaries that have popped up about it. So we figured, hey, let's touch this again, because we did it back when Wayne was alive. So let's try to summon him and see if we can get some EVPs coming across your radio stream.
It's not going to be happy. If there's any technical glitches, we know what happened, and that's all the validation I will need. Anyway, UFO cults. It was for those who don't know, go back and listen to the episode.
It was in season 1.
It was hilarious, actually.
I think it was episode 13 or 14.
Well, what they won't get to hear is the amount of stuff that got cut out that couldn't be put on the air.
We need to release like an explicit version. But
Man, he got hot. He got otherworldly.
yeah,
We've covered multiple topics with
yeah,
Wayne, but I have never had seen him literally really get mad. He was really angry. He wasn't
he
just
was.
that wasn't just Wayne playing the part, on the show. That he was really, really angry.
And it
And
lasted for 2 or 3 days after we recorded.
it was
He
crazy.
was hot. When you start
Yeah.
and I understand to a degree where he's coming from. When you start messing with kids and you start messing with clones.
Let's let's reiterate that messing with kids part. What he's trying to say there is cloning kids.
Yeah, cloning kids.
That's what started the whole thing. And you know, uh Wayne was not a fan of cloning. Let's just
Yeah.
say that. And when he found out that that's what was happening, and we'll actually touch that later on in the show, but that's when it all went downhill, and he was just absolutely furious.
So Ron, where did UFO cults really start? Because I want to lay out a good landscape for everybody because you hear the word UFO cult and instantly the first thing you think about is Heaven's Gate. You
Right,
know, you think about these mass suicide groups, which not all UFO cults are about that life, okay?
right. Well, first of all, you gotta there's characteristics of UFO cults. You gotta look at that first, right? Because
Yeah.
let's call it what it is. Let's call it UFO cults slash religions,
That'd probably
because
be a good way to put it because
yeah,
some of them are more uh benign.
yeah,
So
exactly.
you should say.
Yeah,
Uh
exactly, like a metaphysical kind of thing, right?
yeah.
So they're harmless, but then they're the ones that are not. But they all seem to have these characteristics, and some of the characteristics is that your leader has this either a contact type experience or some kind of Kundalini awakening type event where his mind or her mind is completely opened and knows the secrets of the universe and now wants to share it with everybody. They usually focus on some kind of those new age concepts, and they all seem to have this almost um, apocalyptic, like prophecy thing to a
The
lot of them,
time
right?
apocalyptic
Yeah, like it's
view.
kind of follows the same line of the,
Yeah.
and a lot, honestly, follows the same thing as Judeo-Christian belief in the book of Revelation, where we're
Yeah.
talking about this new world that descends from the sky. It's just in different languages that they've made these adapt. And I think that that's how it gets so appealing to a lot of these people as well, because
Mhm.
you're mixing all these ideologies, all these religions, and all these spiritual beliefs into this soup. But you're going to take this little grain out here because we don't like that. That's a rule, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Let's say you can do that and pour in a little bit of freedom. Boom. That's how you start a cult right there, because you start mixing with that kind of stuff.
But the
So
problem with any cult is
the leader,
of them start very altruistically. They start with this light love, peace, love, and hippie grease kind of movement where they're like everybody loves one another. Everybody's all about, open minds, open hearts, and all this stuff. And then that same charismatic leader normally gets a little screw tightened a bit too much, gets a little bit of a bend in them, and
yeah.
things take somewhat of a dark turn.
Well, ego comes into play.
Exactly.
Massive, massive egos come into play when when you're being literally worshipped.
They've achieved some kind of enlightenment or some kind of that you now need to come to me because I have done this and I will teach you these ways, and it creates a really negative environment because a lot of these times it becomes fairly predatory.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, technically, I guess the first one would have been the Ethereal Society, but like you said, they actually borrowed some of their ideologies from an even older
Yeah,
group.
a group in the 1930s, they called themselves the I Am Activity.
Mm,
That modern day, you'll see some groups. Apparently, there's around it's estimated about 250 to 300 modern day. Like in this survey was taken, I think it was back in 2019. So there might be less now. I don't know. Could be more.
yeah.
But they go by the name of the I Am Sanctuary, the I Am Temple. or the IM activity. That's where they kind of set. And they did pull some theology from them, but they don't really classify, technically the IM group doesn't really classify as a UFO cult, so to speak.
Right. Exactly. But they technically, George King, he was the one who founded the Aetherius Society in 1955. But it's really interesting because he was born in 1919 in England, and he was born into a Protestant family, and they had occult interests. So he was always involved in spiritual healings and had joined lots of metaphysical groups in London, trying to, perfect this skill and hone his ways, basically. And eventually he became this master in like all these forms of yogi. And, basically he just became this incredible, powerful individual. And according to him, it opened up and awakened his psychic abilities, in which he learned the secrets of the universe. Now, okay, we've heard this before, and it's not very much unlike some of the stories of people having Kundalini awakenings and tapping into the Akashic record, all that stuff, right?
Yeah. There are similarities with some of those religious experiences where they will have this kind of enlightenment, this download, so to speak. It's what's the modern term for it.
Mhm.
Is they'll receive this download of information, and now they're a messenger or a voice for the beings of beyond.
Well, King said in 1954 that he was told by a voice in one of these to prepare himself, that he would become the voice of the interplanetary parliament. And a week later, just out of coincidence, not an unmanned but supposedly world famous Swami shows up and basically claims that um, he's going to teach King. He's going to teach King everything that he needs to know: meditation, prayers, all the above. And he's receiving, in no time, these messages from Venus. Um, and this is coming from a being called Aetherius, who lives on Venus. Now, here is where we throw up the red flag. Venus. We've heard Venus mentioned so many times by early contactees, it's not even funny. It seems like Venus was the go-to planet.
Yeah, quite often. You got the Venusians, you've got various the tall whites, all these different aliens, so to speak, that had made contact with people and claimed that they were from Venus. Even even oh gosh, who was the oh not yeah, Valiant Thor
Thor, yeah.
was
Yeah.
one, but so was they were mentioned by Andrew Cold. There's if you read the second book, they talk about the Venusians.
Oh, I don't
And
know. Indrid was from the Ganymede system, but
right, Indrid was from a totally different system, but he spoke about the Venusians.
Ganymede, that's funny. But that's a star. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, the funny thing is that this guy basically claims that he has this contact with these extraterrestrial intelligences. Now, I guess they're non-human intelligences now, if we want to really call them what they are. But he refers to them as the cosmic masters. And the cosmic masters are here to help humanity solve all of Earth's problems and advance in the new age. Well, that all sounds fantastic.
Yes, it's again very altruistic. This is something that's going to save humanity. It's going to prevent disaster, prevent destruction,
Mhm.
shows the error of human ways and what can happen. And then
Well, the thing about these guys is they're not, honestly, they're one of the probably milder that we'll be talking about. Actually, they are the milder we'll be talking about, but they're probably the milder of all of them. Their basic problem to a lot of people is that, you know, they skew religions. For example, the society, it's regarded in firm belief that it's a theosophy, and that they kind of combine UFO claims with, you know, yoga ideas from around the world's different religions, you know, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity. There's like all these assets of different things. Uh, it's it's that they're borrowing from other stuff.
Yeah, it's a big melting pot. They take all the good from all the mainline religions and some of the not so mainline religions from
Mhm.
around the world, combine them into a cocktail, and they say, "This is what we're gonna
Yeah.
do."
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, to give you an example, like for example, they say the cosmic masters. Well, the cosmic masters were like Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu. They came to Earth and they taught the proper ways of living and spirituality. Okay. I mean, I can't say there's anything wrong with that until we get to the point to where Jesus and Buddha came from Venus. Now I've got an issue. Okay. I mean, I didn't have an issue before, but you know, Krishna came from Saturn, just to
Yeah,
let you know. I mean, so here's the thing. Interplanetary councils where Jesus, Krishna, and you know,
Buddha,
Buddha all sit
Muhammad,
at this
all
council,
come from different planets.
and they all come from different planets. That's the big no in the religion, and you know, draws fire from a lot of you know, a lot of the actual religions, real
Yeah.
religions, and gets thrown into a, you know, this gets thrown into a cult. Whereas really, that's mild. That
Oh, absolutely.
they're really
Comparatively
just saying the same thing you hear on Ancient Aliens. I mean, it's not
to
that's
kinda like
I
the
mean, other than Jesus being from Saturn and or Venus, I'm sorry. Sorry, that was Krishna.
like I
Two
don't
different
see
things.
any like, when it comes to the ancient astronaut theorists and some of the stuff you hear on Ancient Aliens, like they normally stray away from trying to attribute specific locations to certain deity unless it was specifically noted in that deity's canon.
Well, they definitely did. They specifically said the Star of Bethlehem was 100% a UFO. We've heard that before.
Right, we've heard that.
Um,
Yeah, we
and matter
addressed
of
that in the
fact,
show.
it may be. I don't know. But what I'm saying is they rolled all that together. So they've taken a little bit of the ancient astronaut lore and thrown it in there. And you got to remember, Fort was writing about that kind of stuff back then. There was a couple little books out there,
Yeah.
you know, that could have played into this and helped to kind of solidify that. Because that's the people you're going after. You're going after the people who believe in that kind of stuff. But they're really honestly not that bad as far as it goes. They're, you know, there's no big
There's no big scandals.
scandal.
They're
No,
relatively harmless.
no,
You don't
no,
have to worry about meeting one
no,
of the, atheists
no.
and having to clutch your purse or, get
Yeah.
into a different cab if one gets in one with you.
These guys are just here to help the earth, basically.
Yeah.
But what's really neat about them that I thought was that they apparently, or he, I should say, um, no, they believe that the earth is alive. This is that basic Gaia theory, right?
Yeah.
So think about that, because this is where you get into the, you know, more of that mixing in stuff, but it's not that bad really. Again, the earth's alive. They believe also that um, they have actually prevented destruction of this planet, I will say, because they have built what King calls the spiritual energy battery. Now, if you look, there's some very old photos that you'll see. Um, I'm going to try to find them. I remember them from a couple of books, and I'm sure we'll be able to get them on here. But there was an attempt at contact at some point back in the day. It might have been during the whole Age of Aquarius thing. I don't know, but they had these boxes up on these pyramid like structures.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what this is. So Only he knows how to build these, by the way. So, but they put all their energy into these, and they basically fire them off.
It's like a spirit bomb.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's like a spirit bomb. And
for anybody who doesn't know what a spirit bomb is, just we're indulging our Dragon Ball Z fans.
Yeah, but that's kind of what it is. It's like this, all their prayer energy goes into this box and shoots out. And according to them, they believe that they have prevented destruction on Earth multiple times with these prayer boxes. I mean, again, I don't see anything wrong with these guys as far as that goes. They probably have just as much right to call themselves a religion as a lot of
because again, their dominant message is peace.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get much
this isn't
you don't get much culty activity out of them. I wouldn't classify them as a cult.
But they are. They were the first.
Yeah,
and this is I want to show.
I'm more comfortable calling them the first organization.
They were the first organization,
rather than a cult, because the cults generally cult has a negative connotation to it.
Right, but they are considered that now.
They are considered that now. Looking back, you're right.
A movement back then, but yes, it did eventually turn to cult status. And again, this is the problem with what you just said. Cults have a negativity about them, but that's more because of a lot of the bad seeds, right? What separates, and that's what I wanted to talk about on this episode versus what we did before. What separates a cult and a religion?
Well,
tough question.
This is a touchy one, right? Because when you start saying the differences, technical
one's right and one's wrong, that's where you're going to go with this, right?
You get one's right, one's wrong, but the worst part about it is you start talking about abuse of power. Okay, tell me when there hasn't been an abuse of power within a mainstream religion,
right? That's
point it out to me. Show me when historically that there hasn't been an abuse of power somewhere.
Right. So that's not
beyond its conception. So at some point along its history, there have been abuses of power, and we know there's abuses of power today still.
Yeah.
You get into brainwashing again. Show me when some of these more mainstream religions don't have brainwashed membership to a degree, that they are convinced 100% that they are right and everyone else is wrong, and that they're right and everyone else is the enemy, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's a very, very
thin line,
dangerous road to walk, because we like to categorize cults as having an extreme view. Some modern religions have extreme views. We also categorize them as having a charismatic leader. A lot of your religions have various charismatic leaders. That's what makes things attractive, is a charismatic leader. But then when you start getting into some of the more sketchy things like human trafficking,
right,
and stuff like that,
this is where we draw the line. This is what separates it, basically, right?
Yeah, but the bad part is there's been the same thing happen within some of these fundamental groups.
Right.
Exactly. So the blondes get so incredibly muddy and blurred. That's why I stated in the beginning of this episode, it's probably not going to take the turn that you guys expected, especially with having a former pastor sitting behind the mic, and then with Ron sitting here, who is also extremely skeptical and extremely analytical about some of these groups. We're looking at this through a window of like,
I'm just saying that it's kind of hard.
It is. It's difficult to draw the defining line. Now, we can look at this from the outside looking in, and we can identify things like, oh yeah, that's a cult. You're crossing into cult barrier. But when you start being honest with yourself and you look introspectively at what religion is as a whole, regardless of what faith you belong to, you see the parallels.
Yeah.
And you see where these cults branch out and they create this alternative that seems attractive. But then the religions do absolutely nothing to help it. They don't try to bring it back in. They don't try to reach over and grab that thing and make it more centric and pull it in and say, okay, well, look. No, it is cult bad.
Yeah.
And they push it farther out instead of trying to do any kind of corrective action and bring it like, okay, let's take this, let's refine this back. Let's look and see, maybe we can take some of these aspects that you're viewing and apply them to this. No, it's just stiff arm. Bam. Cult bad, which trust me, I'm not saying cults are good.
No,
that's not what I'm saying. But
no.
There are people in those cults that are good.
Yeah.
We see all these documentaries today that are, they're victims of cults. Those are good people. Those were people who were in that cult, who were abused, who were damaged, etc. They're good people. They're not evil people. They might have done some really dastardly things, but they did it under a guise of what they were doing was right. And then they had this awakening within themselves. Oh, that's bad. I need to get away from this. Right. And we've seen that with various cults, but some of them have a stranglehold on their communities.
Absolutely.
So
is this where we go?
Some of those.
Is this where we go with the definition at that point? Because one could argue that almost all fundamentalist religions, all of our main big, the big ones today, are UFO cults.
Yeah.
And they can argue that based upon just the words, right? They don't say UFO. No, they don't.
They don't.
But they're also not talking about physical beings. They're talking about non-physical beings, which we now call non-human intelligences. They're talking about strange lights in the sky, miracles, magic, paranormal phenomena in general. I'm sorry, to me, that is the same thing. So then we have to ask ourselves, oh, dear God, I did it.
We have to ask ourselves.
So then we have to ask ourselves, I'm just going to say it. So then we have to ask ourselves, which one? Where do we draw the line? That's where I'm at with this. Where do we draw the line? Because who's right, who's wrong? Are they all kind of talking about the same kind of thing? It's just that some have more sketchy rules, more freedoms, so to speak. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, when we start getting into some of these more bizarre groups, which now we're going to go into the kind of the sketchier groups, we're going to talk about some of those and bring those into the conversation here.
And when you agree that this does fit the classic definition of cult, what we're
correct,
talk about?
These will be the ones that fit the classic definition of cult. And one of them, which is the next in line from these guys, would be Scientology.
Yeah,
which was a religion that was contrived by a American author, L. Ron Hubbard.
Well, it is a religion now, right? That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it
became a religion
to religion. This is where I'm going with this. It's like, why was it?
It evolved, guys.
Yeah.
But there are still people who are coming out of that who are, wow, some of the stories that they tell. And you can see it play out, guys. This Scientology is often described like a cult or a business, a scam, new age, etc. But it all came from a book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, essentially Dianetics.
Dianetics, yeah.
And he wrote this book in 1952, and he created this religion, or what at the time was a cult, which still I think it's kind of a cult. They call it a religion widely, but it's very problematic.
It has some interesting themes and characters.
It does. And you have this essentially this alien called Xenu, that he's a planetary ruler of 70 million years ago who brought billions of aliens to Earth and killed them with thermonuclear weapons.
That's right. That's exactly what Xenu did. He is one stand-up guy. I'm just going to say, because if Xenu's real, I'm on his side.
So
you don't want to be against Xenu, trust me.
that is kind of like their origin story, okay?
Yeah.
And then it goes into this whole spin of different tiers within the religion, kind of similar to what you have with the Masons and the Scottish Rite.
Yeah.
You have these different levels and tiers that you can reach.
Yeah.
And
brotherhoods, right? It's like the inner circle kind of stuff.
yeah, the inner circle. And you attain these levels, and then majority of those guys who are in those higher levels are extremely well-known big players within the business world.
Well, it's because you got to be rich to buy your way into those circles, right?
Exactly.
You don't. That's how good cults work.
Right.
If
that's how they get funding.
You follow me. I will tell you how. Watch me. I'm going to do this right now. I will tell you how you can become the master of your own destiny
for the low price
exactly
of $50,000.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
these guys write these big checks, and they get these high level positions, and then these people in these high level positions essentially lord over people.
Yeah.
They tell people who they can and can't hang out with. They tell people who they can associate with. They make business deals for you that can go good or bad. Essentially, they can make or break you.
Yeah. It's a lot of power.
A lot of power. And a lot of it's in Hollywood too, which is what's crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
L. Ron Hubbard was always surrounded by celebrities.
And by the way, this is where we get into some of the conspiracy theories. Just saying, this is how it all starts to come together, and people start putting a thread here. And oh, wow, this person's this, so that means that they're one. You see how this all works? It all works off of that.
It's that thread of yarn, man, connecting the dots, and it gets crazy and makes a spider web. And now all of a sudden, everything's connected.
Yeah.
But he was often surrounded by these celebrities and high profile people, and they became part of his group, and that's how a lot of it was funded. And then it became the secret society. It went from cult to secret society to now religion.
Yeah.
And
well, you're making zillions of dollars. You can't keep it secret too long.
Right. I mean, it's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization. They got it's crazy the kind of revenue that thing generates.
Yeah, you can't imagine.
But then you get into some of these others beyond Scientology. If you want to know more about Scientology and the craziness there, I'll recommend you just a few documentaries that are on Netflix and Amazon Prime. Just type in that into the search bar. You're going to get 5 or 6 of them. And man, the stories they tell are absolutely bonkers.
If you're
we just don't have enough time to cram that into an hour and a half episode.
I'll say that right now. If you're a Scientologist, that's cool. We don't care. So
right.
This isn't about attacking anyone's faith or belief through this whole thing. It's to address UFO cults and UFO religions and how they have that central thing and why that's a thing.
Now, where we might summon the spirit of Wayne Barnes.
Oh dear God! Here
comes
goes
our next group, the Raelians. Ron, tell us a little bit about the Raelians.
I don't want to. Don't make me do this.
Well, I'll tell you.
Make me do this.
So, the Raelians, their UFO cult came around in the 1970s in France. Claude Vorilhon was his name, also known as, you guessed it, Rael. He basically came up with this entire movement. The group was formalized as the International Raelian Movement, or the IRM.
Well, I mean, he came up with it because he met the being. Remember?
He had a close encounter.
Yeah, it's close encounter.
And this hierarchical religion came into this just fruition, and it all was under Rael's leadership. Now, he teaches that extraterrestrial species known as the Elohim created humanity using their advanced technology. Now, it's real easy.
Here's that hook again. Here's that familiarity hook that they all use.
It's real easy to see this because if you are a studier or theologian, scholar of the Judeo-Christian proclivity, when you learn about the Elohim, that the Elohim was not just one entity, that it was a group of entity, and
powerful powerful entities.
You have to, you got to start asking questions.
You almost said it. You almost did it too. You almost said it.
I almost did it. I caught myself. You have to start asking yourself questions.
It's
you have to
okay. I
start
think
reviewing.
we can say that now, I'm pretty sure.
And you have to look at it like, I mean, it's there. This is historical canon. This is written by the ancient Hebrew texts. It's written by essentially all of the ancient Middle Eastern texts, regardless of which religion you're part of. It's all right there. And so when you have an encounter and you're given the name of this group of people, the Elohim, and then you find out, oh man, this is tied into everything. It can make or break your mind. Like you have to, you've got to be really secure in who you are, what you're standing on, and what you believe when you go study these things, because they can be dangerous, because it can lead you into a position where you yourself can start a cult.
Easy, absolutely easy. But you know, the whole thing old Claude Borleon Rael did was like everyone else does, like everyone should do. He wrote a book.
He did.
So he wrote a book and he published it in 1974. And he told in his book how he had encountered these alien beings on December 13th, 1973. And he was on the side of this, walking on this volcano. How appropriate. He's walking on the side of a volcano, this crater and this mountain, and this ship appears. And out walk the Eloah. And they ask him, hey, you got a Bible? And he's like, sure. And he's like, well, go get it. So he goes and gets the Bible, comes back, brings it to these guys, and they start interpreting the Bible for him over the next 6 days. First of all, here's my thing. How did they read the Bible in 6 days?
I mean,
without going like this and just scanning. I mean, we're talking about they told him what this means, what that means, what these things mean.
Like if you go through like a Spark Notes version, you know, you hit the key topics, because there's a lot of stuff in there that's like, you know, historical canon.
All right. I don't care. Listen, here's the problem. They asked him to go get a Bible, Joe.
Yeah. Why would you need to do that?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's kind of like, why would God need a spaceship sort of thing?
There you go.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you have a spaceship, dudes. Where, you know, come on, look.
Google it, man.
Look.
Right. You know, like obviously Google didn't exist back then, but still, whatever search engine you've got on that spaceship, go ahead and type it in and let's roll.
Where do you think Google came from? Come on.
Could it be? So
you gotta ask yourself.
Now so go ahead, Ron. They interpreted the Bible over a period of 6 days.
Yeah, they did. Which is amazing, you know, to me, because first of all, they didn't have one, and they should have been able to just pull it out. And if they can do all these miracles and magical things, I would think they could do that. But anyway, so they interpret it. He looks at it, was like, oh, well, I hadn't thought about that before. So you guys, oh, okay, you're here, and this means this, and I'm going to go now and I'm going to preach your word. Basically, that's what it comes down to. He's going to become this ambassador. He's going to come out and just kind of, you know, start talking about all this stuff, which he did.
Which we see happen with several other religions. You know, Mormonism, same kind of thing. Yeah. There was an encounter, and then he was given a gospel, and then he went and he said, I'm going to go speak on your behalf. That's what happened with Joseph Smith back in the day.
Yeah. Well, this guy literally, you know, a year before, he has this 1973 is when he has this encounter. In 74, he writes the book. I mean, he's 27 years old and he's got a business plan. That's what he's got. Let's be real, because he's like, I wrote a book. People really dig this stuff. I imagine, I mean, look, it was the golden age of UFOs, of contacts. It was in the, you know, 50s and 60s. People were still having these encounters. It was ripe then. Today, you can't throw a ball across the room without hitting an abductee.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. You can't, because we've met so many people, and I believe them. I believe them. They've had experiences because these experiences are happening. They're just not out writing books and starting cults. But back then it was a big deal, you know. He writes the book and people are like, oh well, yeah, I can relate to that. So he starts going and doing these shows. He goes on the radio, goes on television, starts coming to these symposiums, and he starts talking and about all this stuff, right? And what's really interesting is that he says that he actually went aboard their spaceship at one point. Yeah. And he's transported to their home planet. Now, what's interesting about this is because on the home planet, he is instructed to pick out 6 biologically perfected robotic women.
I mean, that's okay.
That's kind of out there, but okay. So right. Basically, in his claim is basically that the Elohim, they had created everything as clones. This is where this comes in. So he gets his first taste of cloning at this. You see, he sees that clones could be used to make these perfect people,
these perfect vessels.
They created these, you know, apparently for me to do whatever with. What? I mean, I'm sorry. It's a wonderful fantasy. It's great. I mean, it's as great. You can see it in a comic book or maybe a X-ray movie
book.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But you know, that's what it turns into real quick.
That's exactly what it turns into. So when we say things about, you know, good and bad cults and the true term cult,
this is where that comes in.
This is where that comes in.
So the cloning, talking about cloning, it brings us up to the latest hit music festival, Clonaid, right? Oh, wait, no, that wasn't a music festival at all. Clonaid is essentially a business organization that was founded and established in the Bahamas, luckily right outside of American jurisdiction, where, you guessed it, cloning is aided to happen. And it gets even better, because if you go back and you listen to the episode, you'll notice that some of this Clonaid stuff started in Nitro, West Virginia, where Ron and I both worked in a pet shop. Not only that, but just down the street from the pet shop is where it all started.
weird synchronicities.
And, you know, it was crazy. You know, they're cloning kids. They're selecting these for various reasons.
The reason is that they believe that this is a technology, a gift from these beings, right? And that they had created these human hybrids, basically, and they serve as the prophets, and they are going to prepare everyone on the planet. And basically he says that, you know, they created Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, you know, all the big guys, right? Yeah. And basically that Rael himself is the 40th and final prophet of the movement, and that they're going to use this technology basically to recreate the world. They're going to reach the pinnacle of God themselves. So what better godly power than to create life? And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they started trying to create life. They created a clone bank, essentially. They started taking human DNA. They've done cloning tests. Is there any news on what level they're at now? Like currently?
No. They're still around and they're still doing stuff, and
they are still around,
jurisdiction. Bridget Bosley is now pretty much she runs, I guess, Clonaid. There's been a lot of issues with that over the years. But you know what's really funny is she's not a crack. She's not a quack.
She's a French chemist. She's no joke.
Yeah, she's no joke. Like, if someone can do it, she can probably do it. And the whole thing about West Virginia, which is crazy if you really think about that link, because, you know, it is wild and weird. It was August 2000, and it was Mark Hunt was a politician, and he had asked Bosley to clone his late son. They had lost their son. This is what drove Wayne up the wall. they had lost their son. He had died, I think, from heart issue or
Yeah,
something shortly after birth. It was,
he had a now it's a very treatable disorder.
yeah,
But it's a hyperplastic heart disease, basically,
yeah,
where the
well,
valves don't
yeah. Well,
do their thing. And
so yeah, so he passes away, and they are devastated, literally devastated, and they have lots of money, and they want their kid back. So they contact this person who says that they're going to do this. They become aware that she's cloning stuff, or she's trying to. 'Cause remember now, you had the Dolly incident before this.
yeah,
Um, so it was looking like that was going to be a thing. We were going to have to deal with clones at some point. But they invested $500,000 into that laboratory that was
yep,
in that school, by the way. And um, allegedly, after he found out that it was, tied to a cult, he was just like, he cuts ties at that point. But also at the time, you have to remember Bush kind of went on an anti-cloning campaign,
yep.
and the worldview on cloning changed.
And he
So
knew that at the time he was only an attorney in the state. He had
yeah,
yet began his political run, but his political run started 2
he
terms
wanted
after that.
nothing to do with it. Literally wanted nothing to do with it.
So he
So
didn't want that to tarnish his political run.
yeah, but Bosley, not to be discouraged, she heads off to I think it was Florida in December of 2002, and there she says, though it is controversial, the results are not confirmed, that she did manage to create a live clone, and her name was Eve. Um, did it happen? That's for anyone else to make up your own mind on. There's a little bit of evidence out there on both sides, but most say it didn't happen. But she was on CNN on a few of these announcements, and she
Yeah.
made major news. So I don't know, but either way, this movement is one of the more interesting and controversial movements. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and it's because later, and we're not going to delve into it too
Yeah.
deeply, but there is a very sexual element
Oh, extremely. Yeah. Yeah.
to the Raelian organization, and you
Yeah.
guys can. It involves consorts
Oh, yeah.
and
Intergalactic consorts, Joe.
intergalactic consorts, and several other sex related things, and we'll save that for you guys to observe on your own.
Yep.
We will provide you some links to go look and read that stuff, but there's also a really good docu-series about the Raelians right now on Netflix, brand new. You guys can go check that out yourselves. And yeah, because man, it gets woo.
Oh yeah, it's very crazy is the word I would use for it. And like I said, like we've said, I think that one falls into the line of a actual cult,
Yeah, oh
you
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
as far as that goes. Um, there's another interesting cult that you'll hear mentioned from time to time. You still hear this today. You actually still hear this mentioned a lot on some web pages and uh, some posts every now and again. And you've had to hear it. Uh, you'll hear something called the Ashtar Galactic Command.
Yeah.
That actually, you won't believe, you would, but most people wouldn't believe that actually traces back to a number of people who claim to have channeled UFO contactee George Van Tassel.
Yeah.
So in 1947, Van Tassel moved to Giant Rock. We know that. He
Yep.
made like this big move out into the desert there, and he lived under that rock
Right.
for ages. And he
Had a nice little
established,
grotto under there.
yeah, he established a large UFO center there. They had, watches. They had some of the first meetings, like massive
Yeah.
gatherings of UFO people. And it was really kind of cool. But it did turn into this kind of a cultish kind of thing. But, allegedly, they received some messages from time to time, I guess, from these beings.
Now,
And Van Tassel, when he created the Integratron, for example, he said that's where it came from.
Right.
That knowledge came from those beings. And the being, of course, was Ashtar. And the messages came through. And by the 1950s, Ashtar and the Galactic Law Enforcement Agency basically is what it was kind of coming down to. It started sounding kind of weird. And, today it still sounds weird. But
Right.
again, this is one of the more benign.
Yeah, it was more benign because there's a lot of people out there who are involved with ufology today,
Yeah.
who were involved with Van Tassel.
Yeah.
And a lot of its cult status, I don't really think was established by him, but by some of the other members who were closer to him, because he was more
Yeah.
he was more involved in the construction and building of the Integratron than anything. He was almost like this mad genius, and these other people ran the organization more than
he was. He was more of like a new age spiritualist kind of guy.
Yeah.
Is what he was, and I can understand that. There's no, okay. He had an experience. His mind was opened, and now he's seeing these crazy things, and he's going out in the desert. And he's building these big, massive. I mean, the Integratron is pretty impressive. Let's be real.
The Integratron is something else.
Whether he channeled, Tesla to build that thing, or Ashtar, or whoever, it's very impressive for what it was done. In the day it was built. But their whole thing basically is that, benevolent aliens going to save Earth from destruction. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad in this one, really.
So moving next up the list is when we start getting really like there's a bunch of lesser known ones. Okay.
Oh yeah, there's lists. I'd say that the next one on the list probably the Seekers, and they were interesting in their own self, because they had a lot of the same kind of beliefs and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, we're gonna leave the list down here. You guys can go and take a look at all that, and just kind of go into all of them you want. But the Seekers were cool because they actually had the story of the planet Clarion. So that's really a neat little story. So we don't have time to go into any of that right now, but because we want to go where we want to go right now.
And we're moving into the very dangerous, extremely well-known Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about in the past as well before. But when you talk about UFO cults, you cannot get more nefarious and more dark than what Heaven's Gate was. Or is.
Yeah.
It convinced an entire group of people that
your life is so bad.
Yeah. That we're going to jump on the mothership that's on the tail streams of Hellbop Comet. And when Hellbop is at its peak over Earth, that we will all take our own lives and we will board the mothership. That you had to shed your earthly bodies to go up and get on this mothership that was on a comet. And that was all being led by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. And Marshall Applewhite, if you look at any of the videos and you see this guy, there's something that stands out compared to some of the other groups that we've mentioned. And it's that this dude genuinely looks untethered to reality.
I mean, I think that's accurate. Yeah.
He very charismatic, very very devoted to his followers at first, as every good cult leader should be. But then things turn. He runs several drills to make sure people are all going to drink the soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ensure that, we're all going to do this. We're all going to do this, right? We're all going to do this. And man, oh man, it puts a when you mention UFO cult, this is what everybody comes to mind with. They don't think of the benign ones. It immediately goes to Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
And it gets very, very dark, because there were several lives that were extinguished, and it was for nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the whole shit and the body thing, the ascension thing, another borrowed trope, by the way.
Yeah.
Is very messianic way of thinking, just delusional ego is basically what I would call that. But what's really interesting is when L. Ron Hubbard died, you talked about that before. Do you know that the church leaders at the time announced that basically he had to leave his body behind because it was an impediment to his work, and he needed to continue to conduct his research.
Yeah.
So you see this is a common theme. This is, the survival after death, so to speak, a utopian kind of thing. You see this in the more dangerous ones, in my opinion, anyway, from what I've seen.
You do. And you're looking here that they were essentially very brainwashed,
Extremely,
very damaged people to get to this point. You're not of a healthy mental state to begin with when someone starts peddling this kind of just nonsense. But he's so charismatic that it's believable.
Extremely, yeah.
And you grab a hold of it,
yeah.
And it makes more sense than what your current reality does. It's very difficult to swallow, because you're looking at 39 people all dressed the same. They were all basically, they took phenobarbital is what it was, and they took it mixed with applesauce, and then they washed it down with a chaser of vodka. Now, they after this, they secured plastic bags over their heads to ensure that none of them survived, because even though you can take what is a lethal dose to one person of phenobarbital, it might not be a lethal dose to the next person. However, once you tie a plastic bag around your head, you're pretty much, it's lights out. And it's very dark. You've got 39 people who extinguished the light that night, and they were all dressed the same. They were all wearing black and white Nikes. They were all wearing same clothing, black t-shirts and sweatpants. And they all had armbands that read Heaven's Gate Away Team. Like,
what in the world? You just have to ask yourself.
Yeah. It's very sad,
It really is. It's not this. It's a deep story. It's not one of those. A lot of people make fun of it. So many people make fun of it. It's not.
They
it's
do.
Not
they
funny.
Really do.
It's really sad.
They don't really look at how deeply disturbing this event was.
Extremely disturbing. And you've got, those are lives. Those are people.
Yeah.
And those are 39 people who affected the lives of other people, which is a trickle down. If you look at it, as how many people touch the lives of everyone else, that is millions of people,
brothers, sisters, moms, dads, people that were affected by this. The ripple effect is insane.
Through time, it's millions of people.
Yeah.
That's a massive disruption in the timeline, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I mean, oh yeah, you get the argument, oh, it was supposed to happen. Well, was it? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you that, neither here nor there with that. And of course, yeah, people do make fun of it, like I said, and everyone does that. We're guilty of it too. But if you really look at the story and you start thinking about it like that, it's like, man, that is sick. That is sad. Because what it comes down to is that I know a lot of people, and there are so many people today who would just they drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak. They get
Mhm.
hooked. It's so easy. It's so easy to fall for it. And you're like, oh yeah, I can never fall for that kind of stuff. Could you not? Could you not really think about
Well,
this?
the Heaven's Gate, the whole thing was wrapped around, it was shrouded in evangelicalism,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
easy
modern,
to
like this
go from
modern evangelical style of Christianity
yeah,
that was laced with other different things from hermeneutics and whatnot that, it just, man, they twisted the vine is what they did.
oh yeah.
And it became a perverted, in every sense of the word, a perverted, twisted, mangled group of so-called spiritualists that just went to the nth degree with their belief.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a few of them like that that have done the same thing, and they end up being infamous. And I think that's where we were looking in the beginning, trying to figure out that defining line of
Yeah.
a cult and religion.
And this is where the
Um,
hard line's drawn.
that's the hard line.
Yeah.
And to me, Heaven's Gate is the hard line. By the way, we just took, like I said, we took the long way to
The
get
long
here,
way
but
around.
we took a long way around. But
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. So when we say cult, what we are talking about is something that's controlling and
Mhm.
beyond just, go read this and come back and we'll talk about this. That's not controlling.
Manipulative.
Yeah, this is controlling. This is using, drugs to, get people, literally brainwashed, right? And it's using other psychological methods, torture. It's psychological torture, and you don't know what's happening to you. So that, to me, is where we get the line drawn
Yeah.
between, some of these basic little, oh, everybody, church camp. Some people call that a cult. It's not.
Right.
That's not a cult. That's people studying and reading. You're free to walk out of there and throw
Right.
the book in the trash, but
But
not in one of these.
when you have elements of torture, when you have elements of
No,
sexual abuse,
no.
when you have elements of this deep seated manipulation,
No freedom.
there's no freedom. There's so much wrong at the surface. This isn't something that you get into later in the group. No, it is like, hey, welcome, blah 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 blah.
By
And
day 3,
yeah,
that's the thing.
it's one of those things where, man,
And
it's scary,
they prey on
and
the right people.
they
They
do.
they they look for, I know a lot of cults as a big thing back in the day. They would, they show up, on college campuses. They show
Yeah,
up, basically recruit people. It's a
yep,
recruiting thing.
they do. I mean, it
Yeah,
was happening. There were groups that would show up and recruit people like that when I was going through college,
yeah, yeah.
early
I mean,
2000s.
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
So,
free pizza. That's all it takes to recruit college kids.
it really is.
You know,
So,
so
be careful out there. That's pretty much what we're trying to say
yeah,
to you. These things are real. They're actually out there. Um, as far as those early UFO religions and cults, like the Van Tassels thing there, and the Arthurius, and those guys are just part of history. And
yeah,
if it would
and
have,
some of it's really interesting to look into because you can
yeah,
see where they develop their thought process.
yep,
And just be careful. Look at it from an outside window.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
delve too deep into it. Just
yeah,
look at it from an outside window and observe and see where, oh wow, okay, I can see where this came to be. I can this from an outsider's look in, this it makes sense where it came from.
Well, remember, man, from the news segment we did when we were talking about, the Cold War and all that, a lot of those early ones came out of that world.
They did.
They envisioned, and they still do.
They
They
needed something positive. They needed something other
they
than what
need
was going on around them to focus on.
they need a savior that they can
Yeah.
understand, not one that they can believe in, but one they can understand. And if it's aliens, then so be it. Let it be aliens. To them, it's going to get them off this planet. It's going to save them. It's going to save the earth. Everyone lives. Now,
Yeah.
that's not how it works, but.
Right.
Fallen Worlds tells us that's not how it works, but there's a little bit of truth in there.
You have to be careful, guys. So,
Yes.
I think we basically just ran through our final thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. I'm good with this, and it was cool to come back and retouch on this one, and especially with all the crap that's going on today. I mean, it's so easy to see people falling into some of this. It's so easy to see some of this paranoia and some of this stuff that's been just portrayed as the truth, the wild theories. Okay, and you can see how someone can manipulate that, and pretty soon you're in the back of a van, you're driving off to a secret location, you got blacked out windows, and you're listening to some repeating sound over and over again while this guy's telling you the new rules by Argdon. You don't know who Argdon is. You
for all you know, Argdon is Zorp, and you're in trouble.
I'm just saying. So yeah, be careful out there, and let's keep a calm head and stop this paranoia. It's not healthy. It's not good. It's harshing my vibe, man.
Well, guys, thanks for listening to Wild and Weird Radio and hanging out with us for as long as you have. Remember, if you're walking down the aisles right now, picking things out in a warehouse, or if you're working night shift in a hospital or fire station, police department, whatever, stay safe out there. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Remember to head on over to our YouTube channel, just Wild and Weird WV in the search bar. It'll take you right there. You can look up additional content. You can also catch the video versions of the audio portion. And just like tonight's episode, there's going to be pictures and some other stuff inserted that is valuable. You can kind of scrub through it if you need to, just to see those documents and pictures.
In this, nothing. There's nothing of value here. Just.
But if you've also had a sighting or some kind of an experience that you would like to share, head on over to wildandweirdwv.com, click the report a sighting tab, follow the questionnaire, and send that in. We'll be back in touch with you. Whether you're around the globe or somewhere local, we will get somebody boots on the ground to help you out and investigate, or if you just need someone to talk, we're there. If you are looking forward to finding us out on the road, we've got a show coming up here in about 2 months. We're going to be at Ohio Bigfoot Conference first, and that's going to be the first chance to catch us out on the road. Then there's going to be a few other appearances this year, and we'll list those off as we get closer. We'll post up the full calendar here soon. Now, remember, if you're coming across some UFO cults or some rather strange cults that have nothing to do with UFOs, ask a lot of questions. Maybe just walk away. But remember, you can always find your matching t-shirts at wildandweirdwv.com.
Yeah.
Stay wild and weird, everybody.